Welcome to the Happiness Happens podcast. I'm Simona Nicole, host of the show, mindset coach, and motivational speaker. I've made it my mission to help you get unstuck, shift your mindset, and understand your worth to help you live your most purposeful life. Each week, I will bring you an idea, guest, or a positive thought that will leave you inspired and empowered to win your life. We decide the stories we tell ourselves and where we invest our energy. I'm so grateful you popped in. Now let's dive in. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Happiness Happens podcast. I'm so excited for you to join today's episode and to listen to all of the incredible things that are going to come out of this episode. We're talking about mindset. We're talking about imposter syndrome. It's going to be amazing. We have Becky Mollenkamp, and she is a certified business mindset coach who believes everyone deserves to feel powerful and fulfilled. She owned a six-figure content marketing agency for a dozen years before becoming a coach in 2017. Through her one-on-one services and courses, Becky has coached thousands of women to dream and play bigger while also finding contentment in the here and now. So Becky, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for coming on today.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me. I can't wait to talk.
Me too. Okay, so sort of get us started and to dive in, I would actually love to know a little bit about the journey that's brought you to where you are in terms of, having your agency and then switching to coaching and what that looked like.
Sure. So I, in 2010, that's kind of like the monumental year for me, was 2009, 2010. In the space of about 6 months, my grandmother died, my brother overdosed and died.
Oh my
I got divorced, and in that process then basically almost went bankrupt, lost my house. My business that you mentioned went from six figures to, I think I made like 110 or something $1,000 the year before. And then the year after it was like 14,000. I didn't even clear 14,000 because it all was on the heels of the Great Recession of 2008, which didn't really hit my business until 2009. At the same time, all these other things happened. So that process of going through that was, it was earth shattering, obviously, for me, and everything kind of fell out from under me, but I'm incredibly grateful for it now because it is what led me to the life I have now that I'm very happy with. At the time, I was coming to a point of realizing I wasn't happy, but it was really hard to figure out why, because on paper I should have been. I had everything I thought I was supposed to have. Great disposable income, trips whenever I wanted, a partner who was nice to me, a nice, beautiful home, like all the things I thought I should have, a shiny red BMW. Like on paper, it looked like my life should have been great, but I wasn't feeling fulfilled and I didn't know what it was about. And it wasn't until sort of the universe forced upon me a time to evaluate my life that I was like, oh, that's right. Life is way too short to be living a life that doesn't make you happy. And I realized that the life I had created was a life entirely of shoulds. I did everything I thought I was supposed to do throughout my whole life. I was always the good girl and made good grades and, went to college right away and then got right into my career and was going through the path that I was supposed to take to have this career. And it wasn't making me happy, but I never felt like I could get off the ride because I was like, I chose this ride. So now I feel like I have to stay on this ride, even if it's making me sick. Like that doesn't make sense logically and looking at it. But at the time I couldn't see it and I didn't see a way out. And then, universe kind of forced me with a way out in that when my brother died, that was really where I was like, life is just too short. He's 30 and he's gone, and did he get to have the life he wanted? And I'm now determined to make the life I want. So out of that process came a few years of rebuilding through a few years of depression, then a few years of rebuilding. And then that was when I was like, I know I want to help other women. And I want to teach and I want to coach, I want to help. I don't know what that means. And at first I thought maybe I would do fitness training. I was kind of going through that process. And then it was really when I realized, the mindset stuff, like what saved me was all the stuff I did around mindset. And I want to help share these things with other people. And so that was what led me to this path of doing what I do now, which is work I love. And now I'm remarried and have a child and a life that I really love.
Oh my God, that's so beautiful. And going through all of those different things is hard, you know what I mean? And when you're sitting in that point and you're feeling so stuck and you're not sure how to, get to the next step or how to get yourself out of the stuck and out of the parts that are painful and the parts of depression and all of that. What was something that, like little baby steps even, that helped you sort of walk or run or crawl towards more work around your mindset, more positivity, more knowing that you wanted more for yourself?
The biggest thing was just giving myself space and grace, like giving myself the space to feel. I
Yeah.
didn't do that for a long time. I was definitely a stuffer, as a lot of people are, where, like you just stuff the emotions because it's too painful to feel them. And through the process of everything that happened, particularly around my divorce, it was like all the years of stuffing. And there was a lot because I was 35 around that time. So it was like, this didn't even happen until I was in the middle of my 30s, right? I'd lived such a long life at that point of shoulds. But I remember
Mm.
having a time where suddenly I think there was no more room to stuff anything. And then it was just like word vomit. It all came out and I unleashed a torrent of words. And then once they're out, you can't stuff them back in. And I had to acknowledge them at that point. So then it was like, okay, sitting with the stuff. So, following the divorce, and I mean, I went into a time of depression where I ran. I just avoided all of the feelings still. I was like, I'm going to keep doing this has worked for me. I'm just going to avoid this stuff. Right. It doesn't work. And I know that now, but at the time I thought it would work. So I tried for a while until I finally reached a point where I was just like, this is not working. I'm not happy. I'm making people around me not happy. Like, what can I do here? And so I, as at that point, 37-year-old woman, moved back into my mom's house. That's a tough thing to do, right? That's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
But it was really what we both needed because she was also trying to mourn my brother's loss and figure out how to rebuild. And we kind of did it together. And I just took that space that I needed. And I recognized too, there was a lot of privilege in that I had that opportunity to be able to take some time to really dramatically make less money and just kind of cover my basic needs and spend my time thinking. So it was a lot of thinking. I wish there was like a magic, like, oh, if you do these 3 steps, everything's cured. It doesn't work that way. I mean, the first piece is really getting in touch with the feelings. And when I work with my clients, the 3 basic kind of questions I always say to ask yourself when you're doing mindset work or when you're trying to get in touch with mindset is, what am I feeling? What are the facts? And what is my choice? But you have to go in that order, because if you don't deal with the feelings and recognize them, then everything you do after that doesn't work, because you're in just that stuffing avoidance mode that's not genuine. It's not authentic. And to be able to get to your authentic self, you have to start to understand what you feel, not what anyone else says you should feel, not what you think you're supposed to feel, not what, the 5 other people are telling you is the right thing. What do you feel? What do you need? What's happening in your brain and in your heart? And so that was the longest piece of it, really, for people who are accustomed to stuffing their feelings. Just getting in touch with what are my feelings can be incredibly difficult. And so that took me a long period of time. Then it became kind of the next parts of that, which is like figuring out what was real in all of that. What was a story I was telling myself versus what was real? And then getting to the place of action. Okay, so now what can I start to do? Where can I start to make new choices in my life? And then that's what led to a lot of the decisions. So it was like a long period of thinking and processing, followed by a shorter period of like action.
That's really, really incredible. That's so key. And it resonates so much with me because I've literally, in this point in time where I am in my life right now, is exactly what I've just done on a very smaller scale. But I've also been living a life of so many shoulds because, okay, let's just go candid for a second. So if, for example, I work a corporate job and I also have my business and I love my business, and my business is what I want to do full time. That's what I want to do every single day. Like, that's what I want to like eat, sleep, breathe, all the things, and like be constantly doing that thing. But then similar to you back when you moved in with your mom and that kind of thing. Well, I live with my grandma. So that's a new thing. It's only been not even a year or something like that yet. And, you know, I always felt like I should have the job still, because I don't want to seem ungrateful that I live in this place and have all this ability to not have to necessarily pay all of these bills, or I don't have to pay a mortgage and all these different things. And so I hear what you're saying. It makes so much sense. And I feel like, there's so much mindset work we can do in one part, and then we kind of like go through life and things level up, things change. We sort of dive into different areas, and then those same thoughts of like shoulds and what we should be doing kind of creeps back in again. And then hopefully at that point you have the tools that you're able to sort of, help yourself a little bit more. I don't even know if that makes any sense of what I'm saying, but you know what I mean? Like, it's more of like there's always other people's shoulds. There's always other people's shoulds. And I just think that it's such a good point that you made about, really recognizing what you feel and how you feel about something and what you want, because you're not living your life for other people. You know what I mean? Like, you're living your life for your own self. And so that's so key. And
Well, unfortunately, a lot of people are living their life for other people. And I know I was like, I had become such a chameleon. I learned how to adapt to be who I thought other people wanted me to be. And I could be that different person. But in doing all of that, I lost who I was. I don't even know if I ever knew who I was. And that's a
yeah,
scary thing to wake up to, whether you do it in your 20s or your 30s or later in life, to wake up one day or to slowly start to become aware, which is what happened to me, and realize like, I don't even know who I am. I don't even know what I like. I don't even know what I want. And I thought I was alone in that. And now, having done this work, I realize how many people, and I do think it happens more with women, but with people in general, are in that same boat. When I will talk to people about what do you want, very often people are really keyed in on what they don't want, but trying to nail down what they do want, that's hard. It's a very hard thing to do, especially when you haven't been able to give yourself that space, whatever that looks like, whether it's physical space, time, just mental space, whatever, to get in touch with, who am I?
yes,
That's the key question of, who am I? What matters to me? What are my values? What do I care about? What do I want out of my life? What do I want this time that I get to mean? And a lot of people never do that work.
it's so true. That is such a good point. It's kind of like, not everyone gets the opportunity to sort of wake up and like live a life that is true to them, unfortunately. And what you said there is just, it's so key. And I want to shift a little bit into, that feeling of imposter syndrome, because, what you were saying, it's such a good thought. And I've like lost it a little bit because I have so many things running through my mind that I want to ask you. But the part about the imposter syndrome and feeling like you should do all of these things, and never living that life that's true to you, but also when you start to ask yourself what kind of life you want, it's almost like giving yourself two or three things of, yes, this is what I want, but then also not allowing yourself to be fully expressive of everything that you want, because there's always those underlying things of, feelings of maybe not feeling good enough or worthy of having what it is you truly desire in your life. And then creeps up imposter syndrome.
Absolutely. I think that's it. Like, when you do get to that, you do that work and you start to think, like, when you allow yourself the freedom to start to think, this is what I really want, or this is what I like, ooh, wouldn't it be amazing if, wouldn't it be great if my life could look like that? Then immediately, for most people, that voice starts to creep in that says, yeah, but, or who do you think you are? Or sure, someone else, or why you? All of those nasty things start to pop up. That's that imposter syndrome. For people who don't know what it is, that's it. It's the thing that says, who do you think you are to do X, Y, or Z? Who do you think you are to achieve these things? This will never happen to you. You're not worthy of that. Or everyone's going to find out you don't know what the heck you're talking about. No way can you make that happen. That's that imposter syndrome. And most people deal with it. And it's really, really common among smart women, which is very interesting. There's been a lot of research done on that smart women tend to be the biggest sufferers of imposter syndrome. And I think it's a lot about cultural conditioning and how women are taught about what they are allowed to want or how they're allowed to show up, or, that dreaming big isn't for them, it's for other people. And the fact that we don't always see models of what we want that look like us. We see a lot of old white dudes that have what we may want.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of stuff that goes into why that happens. And then smart women tend to be their own worst enemies. The smarter you are, the more you think like, I should be able to figure this out. Darn it. Why can't I just do this myself? Or you'll logically know you should do something, but then you can't do it and you can't figure out that disconnect, but you just logically realize it's wrong. And so then you get stuck in that overthinking trap. So smart women tend to have some of the worst issues with mindset, which you would think like, oh, if you're smart, you should have mindset issues. But that's usually actually the opposite. People who maybe aren't as bright sometimes will have less of those issues because they don't get caught up in the overthinking. They'll just take action or they don't, right? They're not worried and thinking all the time. Smart people tend to have more anxiety.
That's crazy. That is, I think that's the first time that I've ever heard that. And it makes so much sense. And especially what I'm envisioning is like, especially someone or like a woman who's in like a higher position or like maybe like a power role, for lack of better words. And, just sort of climbing that ladder because you thought that you should, and that's what you wanted. And then getting there and being like, what? Like, you know what I mean? It's nuts.
That happens a lot.
It does.
Sure.
It's crazy. And then, along with the thought of that imposter syndrome and just mindset overall, I mean, when we think about mindset, like what is it, do you think, that people might not fully understand about what mindset is?
Well, I think a lot of people seem to get confused about mindset and like strategy or anything else because people will think like the thing that's holding them back is they just don't know enough, right? Like they just need to learn one more skill, or I just need to figure out how to do this one thing. And they think they somehow equate it with like knowledge, or that there's some deficiency in knowledge or experience or education or whatever the thing is, that they'll blame it on that, instead of saying, oh, wait a minute, maybe it's something that's going on with me, right? People don't always recognize how they're sabotaging themselves. And usually buying into a belief that you are deficient in some way is just a form of self-sabotage. That is that imposter syndrome, which is sabotage. It's you stopping yourself from going after something and allowing yourself to buy into the belief that it's just because I don't have X, Y, or Z.
Mm-hmm.
That's where that understanding the facts. So the second piece, like the first piece of that thing, I asked those 3 questions. To me, they're like the 3 questions that'll change your life. The first one is, what am I feeling? So just being able to first get in touch with that. Like, I'm not feeling content. I'm feeling like I want more, or whatever the thing is. So what is that I'm feeling? Or what am I thinking about? What do I keep ruminating on? What thoughts keep spinning? Where am I overthinking? Oh, I really wish I could do this, but I can't, whatever. So once you get in touch with that, then it becomes that second piece, which is, what are the facts? And that's where people I cannot tell you how many of my clients, when I ask them what are the facts about that, will give me a list of feelings, because we want to believe desperately our own stories. It is what keeps us safe. It keeps us in our comfort zone. It works in my favor to say the reason I can't achieve X, Y, or Z is because I didn't get a college degree, or because I don't know how to use this computer program. Whatever the thing is we're telling ourselves, it benefits me to keep believing that story, because then I get to stay right here where it's real safe and I won't get hurt. And I'll always be able to say, well, I could have, if only, right? But no, it's safe here to be able to do that. From there, it's real safe to be able to look at other people and say, well, great for them, but I'll never be able to have that because I didn't go to college, right? That feels a lot safer, even though people will think, well, it's not fun. I don't like being here. No, you probably don't. But it's comfortable. It's what you know. It is safe. So until you can get to the place of being able to actually look at the facts are, I bet there are a lot of people doing whatever the thing is you think you want to do who don't have a college degree. Or I bet there's a lot of people doing that thing you want to do who learned how to use the computer program that you don't know how to use, right? Or whatever the excuse is you're telling yourself. Now, there are some times where those facts might be facts. Like, let's take the college degree. I don't have the college degree. To become a doctor, I have to have a college degree. Yeah. Okay, well, that's factual. Okay, so then it becomes step 3, which is, what's my choice? Well, my choice is I could apply to colleges and go and get that college degree. And then I could go on to pre-med and medical school. Do I want to do that? Then I can evaluate it from a place of facts versus, well, the feeling is, well, I'm a loser, so I could never be a doctor. Well, that's not facts. That's your feelings about yourself. And that's wholly separate. And when you can get to the place of facts, then you can make choices that are based on fact, and those are actionable choices. The choices you're making from that place of feeling are not actionable choices. They become excuses that allow you to stay in your comfort zone. So those 3 questions are there. I mean, they work when we work them, kind of like any program, right? And so that second step is really important, because that's what people get confused with mindset. They start to just believe their own stories. And so they don't believe they have a mindset issue, because they think it's some deficiency that if they could just take care of that deficiency, everything would be okay.
Wow, that was so good. That is so important. And I think it's so true, differentiating what your mindset is and detaching it from what you are and what you do. Oh my God, like that was so beautifully put. And it's so important to think about it that way. It's true, because it's like, it's the excuses at the end of the day. And it's the fear, and, it's essentially how we let fear hold us back. And, it's letting us, look at fear in a different way, looking at that imposter syndrome in a different way, and looking at our challenges and our problems. And it's like, okay, well, that really wasn't that big of an issue that I actually thought that it was. It really is just me trying to make an excuse for why or how something could or couldn't be. That's crazy.
And it's hard because no one wants to think of themselves as playing victim, right?
Truth.
We do not want to feel that way about ourselves. And so we will go out of our way to create a story that makes it so that that isn't what's happening, right? No, I truly don't have a choice here. The world is happening to me. There's nothing I can do about it. This is just the way it is. The world is this way. The world's rigged against people who don't have college degrees, or rigged against whatever the thing is. And I always want to step in at this point also and acknowledge that I am a white cisgendered person who's able-bodied, and I recognize that brings a lot of privilege. So all of that to say that even when you don't have that privilege, it's easy to buy into your own narrative, but especially when you have that privilege, then we have to create stories for ourselves to make it okay, to justify our actions, because otherwise we have to believe what is probably the truth in a lot of cases, which is we're playing victim.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so uncomfortable to say that about ourselves. But the truth is the truth is you always have a choice. Now, sometimes a choice isn't a great choice, but you've always got a choice.
Exactly.
It's, are you going to make it or not? And even when you're making the choice to not go after something because you're allowing yourself to believe your story, that's a choice. You're making that choice. Even if you want to believe the world's happening to you, you're making a choice.
Ooh, that is so key. I believe that so much. I think that we all have a choice in anything in life, especially, okay, we'll talk about this pandemic that we're in right now. Not to talk about it too much, because I feel like, it's all people are talking about. But at the same time, I keep repeating to myself, and I keep repeating on all of my social channels and all of these different things, like, is there a way that we can look at it differently? Like, is there a way that this is bringing you some good instead of all bad? You know what I mean? Like, yes, there always is. You can always find the good in something if you're looking for it. You know what I mean? You can always find the moment of gratitude and, what you're appreciative of. It might not counterbalance all of the stress that you might be feeling. Everyone has a different situation, but you can allow yourself to find that little moment of light and like that little moment of happiness and gratitude, even if you're in like the suckiest of like suck. I don't know.
Yeah. And I always want to be cautious about not getting too far into like love and light and everything's great, because we also have to recognize, like, when I went through everything I went through, which is not a pandemic, but at the time it was as heavy as that for me, with everything that I had in such a short period of time. If someone had said to me, well, what's the good in it? I would have been like, screw you. I couldn't in that moment find the good in my brother's death or getting divorced or losing my house. So I think we have to also give people space to be in the ick and the muck and to sit in it. And sometimes we even revel in it. Some people love to revel in the misery. It doesn't mean that people are going to want to be around you. I lost a lot of friends when I was in that space, and I should have. At the time, I was like, how dare you? Upon reflection, I could see, why would anyone want to hang out with somebody who's reveling in their misery? That's not a fun thing to do. So yeah, but if you are in that place of saying, I'm not ready to find the love and light in this, that's still a choice, even if it feels like an icky, horrible choice. So I always want to be careful. Like, I just always want to caution in that, to say, like, we also need to allow for space for people to get there, because the other big thing about mindset stuff is, it doesn't work until you're ready to do it. It's a lot like alcoholism, and like the program works if you work it. Also, you can't make change until you're ready to make change. So somebody else can say, like, find the joy in this. And you're like, screw you, I'm not ready. So it doesn't work until you're ready. But when you're ready, yeah, you're right. Like, I know for me, with everything that's going on, and I recognize by the time it's airs, it'll also, hopefully, maybe things will be a little bit better. But
cross your fingers.
Right. But even the mindset coach still has to do mindset work all the time. I was a week ago in a place of really getting down and like, I don't know how much longer I can do this. And this is overwhelming, and everyone in the house and the whole thing. And I had to sit in that feeling for a little while before I could get to the place of being able to say, okay, Becky, what are you feeling? I had to sit in the feeling piece for a while before I could get to number 2. And again, just like I said earlier, usually it's the number 1 piece that's the longest, is what are the feelings? Sometimes you have to sit in the feelings for a while to really know what they are. Then you get to the place of, so then I was like, okay, well, what are the facts? What's the facts about? Well, the facts are, I can't go do X, Y, or Z. The facts are, I could find things to do here. The facts are, I have other, whatever. And then I was like, okay, well, then what are my choices? And that's when I most recently just wrote out a schedule that we're living by now. And that's really helping me find some me time and all of that in this. So it takes time. What I think happens with mindset work is the fear never goes away. The crappy feelings never go away. It's life. They're going to happen. People are going to die. global pandemics are going to happen. You're going to get down. You're going to PMS, whatever it is. Like the things are still going to happen. They're going to cause either the fear or the sadness or whatever. The difference that I see is that when you can learn how to do the mindset work, what happens is how long you sit in the ick can be greatly reduced. Now, like certain things, I may sit in it for a few days. Generally now though, when I have something come up, let's say around imposter syndrome, where in the past I would have let that fear stop me completely and never take action, or I would have sat in it for a long time and overthought all the reasons I suck. Now I can recognize it more quickly for what it is, and I can work through it and take action sometimes within minutes because I'm able to now do that work that quickly. But with my clients, it's that process. Sometimes it takes a lot of time. So we have to give ourselves grace in that too. It's not like overnight everyone's going to be like, oh, I can just, if I know these 3 magic questions, I can just change everything tomorrow.
No, exactly. And I think, for me, it's a lot of like, because I spent the last 3 weeks in my own thing and I was like, no, I need to shut down and turn off. And honestly, I live by the love and light, positivity, optimism. Like that's just who I am as a person. I've always been that way. But it doesn't discount the fact that, we're allowed to feel a different way, and we're allowed to be sad. We're allowed to be upset and like angry. But I think it's also knowing that, similar to what you were saying, like that part of positivity and love and happiness in life. I want to quickly pause this interview and tell you about the Handel Group coaches that I've had the honor and privilege of bringing onto the Happiness Happens podcast. With every conversation and interview, I've learned something so impactful and so life-changing. Inner You Life is the online coaching course from Handel Group that gives you the tools to get yourself unstuck, wildly happy, and thriving where it matters most to you. Your relationship to yourself, career, love, body, money, time, and more. From wherever, whenever. Recommended by Hugh Jackman, Dr. Mark Hyman, Forrest Whitaker, Elena Brower, and hundreds more. Taught in MIT, Stanford School of Business, and 50 plus institutes of learning across the world. Visit inneryou.coach and use the code HAPPINESSHAPPENS at checkout for $75 off. Now, back to the episode. Happiness and light will come again. You know what I mean? It will happen again. When will it happen? Probably a lot faster if you're doing the mindset work already, but it will happen again. And I think it's exactly what you're saying, giving yourself the space and the grace to feel the way that you feel, and knowing that it's okay to feel like that. And you don't have to have it all figured out and everything planned, because it'll never, you know what I mean? Like you can try, but it might not go the way you want it to. But I think for me anyways, it's helpful knowing that like the positivity will come again. The happiness will come again. You'll feel aligned again. It's not permanent. You know what I mean? And I think that's just like we were saying, like death happens and all these different things happen. Your life literally goes up and down like a wave, right? So knowing that those things will happen, but you're also able to balance when you're ready, I think is also super key. And, I think, a lot of this has to, I wanted to ask you, like, what do you think would help someone like tap into like their most authentic self, like their most, aligned and happiest and sort of in flow, for lack of better words, self? And I feel like this has a lot to do with it, but I'm curious if there's anything else you would add too.
Well, yeah, the work, I mean, when I work with my clients around that issue, what I kind of approach values from a different space than a lot of people, because I think what we hear about a lot is like, basically what it boils down to is find 3 words that feel really good to you, right? Like that seem important. And that's nice. But what happens is very often what we do is we pick words that are aspirational or that we think we should want, right? So suddenly people are picking family because if you don't, what kind of horrible monster are you, right? But maybe that's not actually what brings you into alignment and brings you that joy and fulfills you. It doesn't mean you don't love your family. It just may not be the thing that gets you into that flow state or makes you feel at a higher level, get your energy going. So like what I like to have people do is for 2 weeks, ideally, I have them try to be very aware. And at the end of the day, I think it's a good thing to do kind of as a night routine at the end of the day when you're laying in bed, or if you can write it down, but you're kind of decompressing from your day and thinking, what were the moments today where I was like, that was great? Or even, I feel content, right? Like, where did I lose myself in the day? Where was I in flow state? Where did I lose track of time? Whenever you lose track of time, it's a very good sign that you are in that flow state and that is something that's bringing your energy level up. Also, just where you feel joy or where you feel contentment, because we don't always have to have 10. It doesn't have to, no one's going to live at a 10. You can't sustain 10 level joy nonstop, right?
24/7.
Yeah. Contentment is a beautiful thing. It isn't necessarily the super high, but it's not the low. It's just like a kind of a Zen state. So those are the three things I like to look for. When was I feeling joy? When was I feeling contentment? And when did I lose track of time? Review that and make notes. Like, what were the activities I was doing? And once you get that for a couple of weeks, a week at minimum, 2 weeks is better, you can start to pull out, okay, what were all the activities I was doing? And then you start to look at what was being serviced in each of those. What was the value that was being serviced in the fact that I lost track of time while I was working on a spreadsheet? What is that about? What was it about that spreadsheet that was fulfilling me? Was it because I love order? Was it because I love answers? Was it because I love teaching? I don't know what the thing was, right? And, what was usually people find there's a few keywords that most people have, which is family, community, connection, courage, creativity, whatever. So looking like, what are the things? So once you kind of find all the activities, you think about what was being serviced in each of those. And I will tell you, when you do that, more often than not, you will find the same 1 to 3 values that are being serviced whenever you're in that state. Those are your core values. They may align with the ones that you chose off the word thing because they
Off the
sounded
big list on Google.
and they may not. And it's okay. Those are the things that actually right now are bringing you to that higher state. Also, it doesn't mean it can't change. A year from now, 5 years from now, we are not the same people. We are fluid people who are changing all the time. So values do not, to me, mean these are these 3 things that until the day I die will be the most important things to me. It's what is it right now that gets me that fulfillment? And when you can figure that out, then you can start designing days that bring you that fulfillment. One of the questions I ask myself every morning in my morning routine is, how can I live into my values today? I know what they are. So then I think about it in the morning and I think, what am I going to do today to make sure that I have connection? It's one of my core values. So how am I going to bring connection into a day where maybe it's just me sitting in front of the computer all day? That might be a day I'll do a virtual co-working session because I'll at least get some human connection, right? Or I'm going to make sure I have a date with my husband that night, whatever it is. So getting that, understanding what those are, because then allows you to create days that bring you joy or at least contentment. And those are great days.
Oh my God, I love that. That is such a great way of looking at your values. Oh my God, I've never heard that before. You're just throwing all these gems in here of things that I'm like, oh my God, like, yes, of course. Like, it makes so much sense to think of it that way or to do it that way. I feel like you bring a lot of like, just like, almost like which is perfect for you doing mindset work, more of like the reality check side, like the more of like the, like the, I don't want to say process because I feel like that's not the right word, but more of like strategy, but not strategy. I don't know.
I always say that I'm a really practical, there is nothing wrong with love and light. There's nothing wrong with crystals and lunar maps and anything else you're into. I think for everyone has their own place, but I know that my clients tend to be smart, high achieving women who just want answers, or they just want like facts. Like they want to come at things from a real, because they're smart, they tend to overthink. They want to come at things from a real practical standpoint, and all the other kind of stuff. A lot of times though, they'll go from here to a more of a like a love and light, whatever kind of state, but they're really looking for things that are just really grounded and practical. And that's how I am. The work I do is all grounded in psychology and science. It's based on, that kind of thing, not just like this sounds good and feels good. Yeah. And so I appreciate that you say that, because that's really my approach, is really to try and like make things practical and approachable for mindset.
Oh, it makes so much sense. And it feels exactly, right in what you're doing. And I love that. And, when you think of like your values in general, and, how would you suggest, and it could be the same thing that we just spoke about, but how would you suggest for our listeners who are listening today, to be able to find their own value in what they're doing in the world, in the community, and their businesses and their careers, their jobs, their offers, projects, launches, whatever?
Well, I hate when people say charge what you're worth. And I used to make this mistake. So I totally own that before I really understood you are worth infinite
Priceless.
amount. Yeah. You are priceless. There is no amount you are worth. Your work has some value. And that's just basically what we as a society deem it to be worth. But it is, you are wholly separate from your work, and your value is wholly separate from your work. So we have to be careful to separate those too often, particularly in our culture that's very much capitalist and money driven. We tend to tie our value into our checkbook, our bank account, and you are wholly separate from your money, and your value is wholly separate from your money. So I always want to start there too, and saying like, your value has nothing to do with that. Now, how can you make sure you're doing work that you feel like you value and that is important? And that to me is where know your values. The more you can get in touch with what your values are, and it doesn't, again, it's the things that actually bring you fulfillment, right? So not just the work, things that bring you fulfillment. What are those? And then how do you design work that allows you to have that? And even if, and this is where, when I talk about my bio about like, I want to help people find contentment in the here and now. Great. I would love to have the job that sounds perfect and totally aligns with my values and whatever, right? Like that may not happen, because again, the reality is right now, some of us are where we are. You may have to have a 9 to 5 while you're building your other business.
Yeah.
So then how can I execute on my values in my current circumstances? So again, if I know I like connection and I'm working alone, how do I make that happen for myself? If that's important to me, how can I still make it happen even if I'm not able to change the circumstances of the fact that I work at home alone, right? Maybe I can't afford a co-working space. What can I do? Well, I can get on a Zoom chat even if I don't pay for it for 40 minutes for free, right? So you can find ways to incorporate your values. And that's the thing that I like to work with people who are in a situation that maybe they're not ready to leave. Okay, well then how can we start making it work better for you? That becomes about the choice of how can I live into my values today? What can I do? I know I don't like I had a client who she would go to these meetings with someone and they drained her and she couldn't figure out why, and she didn't know what to do about it. And she was like, I don't know why these meetings drain me. I think I should like it. I say I like to meet with people. Like I say, I like people. I don't understand it. Well, we did our values work, and it turns out one of the things she really values is productivity, right? She's accomplishing something. And these meetings were just like random chit chat. There was no agenda. She didn't know what was going to happen. And she left them feeling like that was a waste of my time. So she couldn't get rid of the meetings. What she changed was she created an agenda for them. She shared the agenda. People were fine. They didn't mind getting the agenda. And for her, she now left the meeting saying, I got to check off the 4 things we said we were going to do. And now that same meeting feels really good to me, right? So it's just, how can I start to make those little tweaks to what already exists, knowing my values?
Oh, I love that. That's so important. That's really, really cool. Oh my God, you're brightening my perspective today, and I'm really enjoying this a lot. And I'm curious, with your clients and the work that you do with your clients, what are some like self-love hacks or ways that you tell your clients to sort of like relax and take a step back, and become more in alignment with what they feel like they're wanting to do, and how would those make a difference for your clients?
Well, it's funny because, so I mentioned one of my things that I ask myself in my morning routine, which I actually have 4 questions I ask myself in my morning routine. And one of them is, how can I live into my values today? So we talked about that. One of them is, how can I show myself love today?
Oh,
Which means I'm placing a priority on loving myself. I'm now making myself a priority by making that one of the things I ask myself every morning. How am I going to show myself some love today? And that doesn't mean I have to get a pedicure every day. Self-care or self-love doesn't just have to mean splurging and doing all the things that we see, like taking a bath. It means understanding yourself. Again, knowing those values is a big part of that. What makes you feel good? It might be for you taking a 5-minute nap, a 20-minute nap, whatever that is. Somebody else might be like, oh my God, I hate napping. For you, it could be like being productive. It might be like, if I get 3 things cleaned in my house, I'm going to feel so good. Or someone else might be like, oh, cleaning, that's not self-care. That's work. So you have to know what matters to you, what makes you feel good, and track it. Anecdote, like actual evidence, because I like to ask, the number 2 question is, what are the facts? So what are the facts about self-love? It doesn't mean I have to just go steal some list off Pinterest that says, oh, well, I have to give myself a pedicure and whatever, make a cute craft and I should feel all better. Figure out for you, what are the facts about what make you feel good, and do those things, and then prioritize that.
I love that. And it's so true. Like mindset, not mindset, self-love, self-care. is so many different things to so many different people. You know what I mean? Like it's never going to look the same for two people. And so nothing drives me more insane than when people are like, these are the 10 ways you can, you have to show yourself. No, those 10 ways don't ever work for me. You know what I mean? Like for me, it's different. For everybody, it's different. What makes you feel more connected to yourself is different than what somebody else would. Like, for example, exactly what you just said. My fiance loves naps. Me, I'm like, okay, we could be using this time so much better. Do you know what I mean? But that's just the difference between two people and what helps you recharge versus somebody else. So very important to remember. How could we start to create a better mindset around money? And then what's the impact on that to our lives and then to our businesses?
Well, we live in a world in which money has a lot of value. And so it is important, I think, again, trying to do some work around understanding that your value is not about how many dollars you have. That's completely different. It's not about the work you do. Your value is an inherent thing that you have. You have inherent value separate from any of that. That can be hard work to do, but doing some like journaling around that, some reflection on that, some meditation on that, I think is really good. But I do think it's important to get to a place of feeling good about money, having a healthy relationship with money, because we need to make money to survive in the world, also to do more good in the world. The more money you have, the more good you can do. And if that's something that matters to you, then making more money doesn't have to be a bad thing, because that's something that happens a lot with money mind. People have bad money mindset is they start to feel guilty about making more money or wanting more money because money is bad. There's a lot of people who learn that at an early age. But wanting more money doesn't have to be bad. Wanting more money may mean you want to do more good. Also, it's okay to want more money. Just to want more money. That's okay too, right? So all of it is okay, but to unpack a lot of the stuff that we have around money mindset can take some time. I think there can be some benefit in doing some journaling around that. I actually have journaling prompts just around money mindset because I have a money mindset course. So I love money mindset stuff. But I would say like the fundamental piece of what I teach in my course is that to me, money mindset, and here's where I think I tend to differ a little bit from some people who are into law of attraction and all of that. And again, you have to find what works for you. So that's most important. There's no right way to do money mindset or right way to do anything.
Exactly.
But the way I teach it is, again, from a bit more of a practical and science-based kind of approach. And so I talk about the 3 pillars of money mindset, which are attitude. That's kind of that law of attraction thing, the energy you're putting out. Are you putting out an energy and a thought and the thoughts that will attract money, right? That say, I'm open to receiving money. I want more money, because very often we will say we want more money, but the way we're showing up in the world is not communicating that. So it's attitude, but then the other 2 pieces are really just as important. And those are action, meaning taking inspired action. So it's not just enough to think I want money and to even truly believe, oh, I want more money. We have to then take some action, because this idea that you can just put it on a Pinterest board and the money's gonna start falling out of the sky, I tend to think is maybe not the best way to live our lives. I think The Secret there's a lot of good stuff to that, but truthfully, it becomes then about taking inspired action. It's about being in the right frame of mind when you start taking action. So when you show up and you're selling something, you're in the right frame of mind to be charging more money, right? So it's about action, and then it's about acknowledgement. And this piece gets overlooked, but gratitude is so important. And it's not just gratitude, but it's just awareness. Very often people will say, oh, I don't have anything. I'm broke. I'm whatever, I have no money, I have all of these things that they have. But when they actually, if you actually acknowledge what you have, you would be blown away by how much you have, right? But we don't even acknowledge what we have. So then when we start to get more, it doesn't register. Because we're not to acknowledge it. So you have to have all 3 of those things kicking in full gear. And if any one of those pieces isn't working for you, then I would say I would start there. I would start on, is it that I don't believe I can make more money, right? Is my attitude bad? Is my energy around money bad? Is it that I'm not taking any action to then make more money, that I'm putting up my own roadblocks from taking the action to make money? Or is it that I'm not even acknowledging what I have and what I receive, what comes to me? All of those things need to be happening. So I would say focus on all 3 of them, or find where maybe you're deficient and brush up in those areas.
I love that. And I love your last point about acknowledging it, because it's so true. If you literally sit down in your house and look at all of the things that you have, first of all, just like material things that you have, they all have a monetary value, right? And being really grateful for all of the things that you have, even this technology that we're able to have this conversation today and deliver all of your incredible wisdom to everybody else. That in itself is incredible. And it's so true what you're saying. Like if you don't take the time to acknowledge and appreciate what you have right now, when you're making millions, you will never appreciate the millions because you've never appreciated the hundreds. You know what I
And
mean?
it's the exact same, by the way, for everything, which is like all
Yeah.
mindset stuff is really all the same. So money mindset is only slightly different in that it may have a different set of circumstances that got you to where you are with your mindset because it's about how your parents related to money and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all the same. So it's the same with, you may say, oh, nobody loves me. And you'll just, and then you could be in a relationship for 30 years and still feel unloved because you've never even taken the time to acknowledge the things that your partner's doing for you. So you may think my partner's a big giant jerk. And you may always feel that way, even though he might not actually be. It's because you're not paying attention. You're not acknowledging. And then the more you don't acknowledge, the less that person wants to do for you, right? Why should I do
Yeah.
anything nice for you? Because you never even acknowledge it anyway. And then it just compounds. And now that problem becomes bigger. And when you're never acknowledging the money, it's like suddenly people stop giving, right? If they don't feel like aren't appreciative, they're not going to give, whether it's money or
Exactly.
anything else. So all of these things relate to each other.
Exactly. They totally do. Especially, I mean, that is just all, it all is such a good point, especially when it comes to your relationship or a partner, loved ones, friends, family. Like if you aren't acknowledging and appreciating every single aspect, you can't always expect it to be there in the same way. You know what I mean? Like there's only so much, exactly like you said, that someone will put up with or do. And then, you know, the more people feel left behind or like shut down or whatever, the less they're going to even want to try. And, you know, it makes perfect sense. Okay. This is a question that I ask all of my guests when they come on the show. It's my last question for you. And how could someone create a little bit of happiness in their day every single day starting today?
Well, okay. So let me give you the 4 questions that I ask myself each morning. I've
Oh,
told you
I
2.
love
I'll
it.
tell you the other one. So how can I live into my values today? How can I show myself some love today? What can I do? What's one small thing I can do to move incrementally closer to my goal, whatever your big goal is? And how can I show some gratitude today? When I find that I do all 4 of those, I feel a lot happier because there's a lot of science around the fact that gratitude increases our happiness. But the point of me sharing all 4 is that even if one of them maybe doesn't make you feel happy, when you do all 4, something's going to hit you that day. So if that day, maybe you needed a little gratitude, great, you got it. If that day, what you were really needing was some productivity, great, you got it by having the one thing you can do for your goal. If what you really needed that day was just some self-love, great, you got it from that. If what you really need to do is live in your values, great, you got it from that. So for me, it feels like just asking myself those 4 questions every morning. I have them. It's just right here. I write it down every day, like as I go through my morning ritual, which really that's pretty much my ritual besides 10 minutes of meditation. I find that just doing that gets me in the right headspace. And so I think even if there's one of those questions that really resonates with you, ask it every morning. Or if they all kind of do, but you just don't know what you need that day, ask all 4. That way, that day you're going to come out of it feeling better because you set yourself up in the right place, the right frame of mind to do that.
I love that. Those are really, really good. I have a question for you. And I never actually usually ask this ever, but I'm so curious. What are you reading right now?
I am I am currently listening to a book, an audiobook by Pete Holmes, who's a comedian. It's called Comedy Sex God, which is kind of funny, but he's like a former Christian, although I think he still considers himself sort of Christian, but different. But he's very much like all about trying to understand human existence. And I'm currently in a place of trying to remove myself from ego and self, meaning not just ego as in pride, but as in sense of self.
Yeah.
So like the other part of my morning routine is I say the prayer of Saint Francis every morning now, which I'm not a religious person, but the prayer is all about how can I be of service to others? How can I remove myself from things?
Mm-hmm.
And that's really kind of for me, my next plane of existence. I've mastered a lot around mindset, and now I want to just kind of even get out of my own mind. I want to remove the idea that it's about me and try to live a sort of higher existence. My word for this year was elevate. So I'm trying to elevate my consciousness. So it's a book from a comedian that's sort of funny, but it's also kind of deep.
I love that. That's so cool. Just by you saying that, I don't know if you've heard of this book, but I'm sure you could, like Audible or whatever, you could find it and listen to it. It's The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Mm-hmm. That one is so good. I'm reading that one right now, and it literally is that, taking your yourself out of your mind so good. Have you read it?
I haven't. I have it. I read the other one that I really loved was Untethered Soul, which is Michael Stanger. And it's all the same stuff too. Eckhart Tolle's on my shelf. I can see it.
For everyone who's listening to this, she's looking right at it.
But it's a little bigger that I was like, oh, this is a hard time for me to even listen to a book of that length. So yeah, now I'm kind of sticking to shorter reads, but it's been on my list to read for a very long time. So one of these days I'll get to it.
And we'll have to connect once you do.
Yeah.
I love it so much. Becky, where can our listeners find you?
BeckyMollenkamp.com, or social is the same, Becky Mollenkamp.
Love it. Thank you so much for coming on to the show today. This was so fun.
Absolutely. This was great. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to today's episode on the Happiness Happens podcast. Absolutely go back to the start, re-listen to this one, grab all the nuggets of information, because there's so much amazing stuff in this episode that you will be able to take and implement into your life right now, starting today. And I hope you have a beautiful week, and see you on next week's episode. Thanks so much for being here today. I hope these words have brought you inspiration, insight, and a bit more happiness. Please leave a comment or a review if this episode resonates with you. I would be so grateful. Until next time, remember that happiness happens when you're least expecting it.